Magna Roma is a game you play when you don't care how pretty Foundations of Rome is, but you want to play a game that's actually good. Hey folks, I'm Jeff, your tabletop technician here in the Dice Tower, and that's right, I said it, and I'm not sorry. I think Foundations of Rome is one of the most overhyped games of the past several years. This is a $45 game that costs upwards of $250 just because it has a bunch of pretty plastic buildings in it. But as far as games go, it's very short on decision space, it's very repetitive, and it's very dependent upon luck, especially in how those initial deeds are dealt to players at the start of the game. So where do you go to get a good Roman-themed city builder that isn't quite so dependent on its own window dressing? Hey, here we go! Magna Roma showed up in late December 2022 from Arcona Games, makers of Galactic Warlords and Small Star Empires. Yeah, I know, I hadn't heard of any of those either, but hey look, it's got city building and little plastic miniatures and meeples and tracks to climb and gold coins, so let's check it out. These tiles are the foundation of building your Roman cities. They come in 3 flavors: residential, commercial, and administrative. These tiles could include a variety of different symbols on them, like stars, beautification symbols including pillars, masks, and lyres, and partial shapes around their edges. You'll start with this town center tile, and while it doesn't have to remain in the center, it's just the first of exactly 25 tiles that you'll ultimately place into your city. As you begin to add additional tiles, you might form symbols where 2 or more of these tiles meet. There are 6 different possible symbol configurations, and each one provides a strong or a weak reward based on whether or not the 2 tiles that form that symbol are the same or different colors or types, respectively. You might gain some money. You might gain some citizens, maybe a few points, or you might climb some tracks, like the Legions track, the Pantheon track, or the Luxury Market track. Each of these rewards, of course, have different purposes. Gold, for example, is used to purchase monuments. Monuments sit on the intersection of 4 tiles and provide endgame scoring based on a variety of conditions. However, they only provide their points if enough citizens have been assigned to them by game's end. Legions you gain can be sent to conquer distant provinces, which also provide a variety of endgame score depending on how many legions you sent to that province. Luxuries also provide endgame score, but only based on how many stars you have from those city tiles in your city. You track your stars from each of the 3 tile types here on your player board, and the Luxuries track only gives you points based on each star on the lowest of your 3 tracks. These tracks, however, also provide other bonuses as you climb them, so there's more than one incentive to collect tiles with stars on them. In addition, though, the Luxuries Market track has a few trade bonuses you can take whenever your player token would land on a space beneath a trade token. These can let you exchange something that you may possibly have an abundance of for something that you don't. Lastly, there's the Pantheon track, which along its way hands out these blessing tokens. These can be worth points at game's end depending on your place on the track, or you can place them on any tile in your city to reactivate any of the symbols along each side of that tile. By the way, these tiles are chosen from a circular track on a separate board, which also contains the victory point track. Now, at the end of a player's turn, they'll move their marker up to 2 spaces around this track, ignoring any spaces occupied by an opponent's marker. That tile will be the one that they take on their next turn. Now, once all players have finished their mandatory 5x5 city grid, the game ends, and players will score points based on the province cards they've sent legions to, the result of the luxury track, points if they have a bunch of unused legions, points from any unused blessings tokens, and the eligible score from any monuments they've built. I mean, that's not bad at all. I've covered basically all the rules in about 3 paragraphs. I mean, this game is simple. It's so simple. It's such an easy game. It's really easy. It's just such a simple game. It is not easy. Let me talk for a moment about the brain-bending experience behind a playthrough of Magna Roma. Every turn, every round in this game, you're trying to figure out how to get more legions off to conquer distant lands in the name of Rome, for points. You're trying to provide luxuries to your citizens in order to help improve their social status. For points, you're trying to build beautiful monuments in your city, and I don't know, staff them up to score their beautiful points, and all the while you're trying to keep the gods happy for some points, diversify your city's composition for points, keep it beautiful for some points, and I just want some points. I just want some points. You know how in the game of Carcassonne, you're always kind of sitting there staring across the beautiful European countryside that you and your friends are building on the table, and you're sitting there thinking about all the things that you haven't quite finished yet, and you're really hoping that maybe the next tile you draw will be the one that lets you finish something. Well, imagine that, if you will, but with every decision that you make, there's like a 90% chance of being stabbed in the back by some guy named Brutus. It's not that Magna Roma is hard to learn, or necessarily even hard to play. It's just that there is a ton of decision space in this game, far more so than some other Roman city builders. Now, I did briefly complain about the luck in Foundations of Rome, and I'd be completely lying if I didn't admit that there's certainly a bit of luck here in this stack of tiles. Yes, you will be miffed when the space that you just vacated on this board gets replaced with something that you really did want to get, and you'll be really furious when an opponent snags up that tile before you have a chance to on your next turn. But it's also very common for a player to have jack squat and options available to them when it's their turn to pick. And I don't know, I think what makes this game work is the fact that the game kind of forces you to diversify. It's almost like your citizens are saying, hey, take a chill pill on the warmongering and go trim up those hedges, or restock the treasury. And as a result, most games of Magna Roma end up being fairly tight, because while maybe your opponents were awarded more opportunities to go and fight triumphant battles abroad, you possibly took the opportunity to build more monuments, or have a more prosperous population. In fact, most times that I've played this, I've been woefully confident that I didn't have the win at the end, and yet often I would, albeit just barely. Now, let's talk about expansions. Up first is the Emperor's box. This adds slightly upgraded components to the base box, but it also adds a few modules to the game. Besides some extra province cards, a few extra trade tokens, and 2 new monuments, there's also the city beautification variant. This adds a simple stack of garden tiles with the same beautification symbols that appear on some of the city tiles in the game. On your turn, as a free action, you can pay to place one of these tiles onto a city tile that doesn't already have beautification symbols, but it'll cost you 1 gold, plus 1 gold for every one of these tiles that you've already placed into your city. Now, these are great because they let you mitigate some of that bad luck of the draw when it comes to achieving various endgame goals. Up next are the city planning cards. Now, I'll admit I haven't tried these yet, but these offer cartographers-like scoring opportunities for setting up various arrangements of tile types and those beautification symbols in your city. If you manage the type arrangement at the top of each card, you then unlock the chance to score the beautification arrangement at the bottom of the card. Now, unlike the beautification variant, these do kind of double down on the luck of these tiles as they're drawn, because you have to place them in certain arrangements, and it could kind of coerce you to step over dollars to pick up dimes. Again though, I haven't tried these yet because I kind of have enough to chew on in this game. And speaking of chewing on stuff, the Emperor's box also came with some extra components for the Dominus expansion, which came in a box almost the same size as the base box, and which I'll admit I already sent off for recycling. But the Dominus expansion replaces a major component of the base game, this Legion track and the province cards, with a map of what would ultimately be the Roman Empire until about 476 AD. This is reasonably an area control map, and with this board you will use your Legion action, or optionally the Prestige action, which used to just give you victory points, to place actual legions on this board, starting here in Rome, and then using those same actions to spread those legions across the map, presumably conquering those distant lands, but this time with some new goals. The first to each region grabs a one-time bonus, but at game end, players in the top 3 positions of control in each region will have the ability to score points based on the tiles placed in those regions during setup. So you could take control of a region to score those points yourself, or to deny that higher score to one of your opponents. How Roman of you indeed. This module is certainly a good challenge for players to tackle, and of course it's a bit more taffy to stretch across this already intricate game. It's also a pretty good way to get lost, and to maybe lose if you tunnel vision too much on your city building and lose sight of this board in your peripheral. The potential rewards here are much greater than they were in the province cards of the base game, and while I really appreciate the added opportunities presented by this expansion, it can be the proverbial horse led to water. The last expansion content is the Portus module. This adds a ship to each player's components, as well as a port at each city and islands between each player. This creates a loop around the table connecting the different players' cities. Now, on your turn, your ship might move one space counterclockwise around that loop, but that movement is based on first which tile it is sitting on at that time, and then possibly by which type of tile you place into your city on that turn. If the ship is at any port on the table, it moves one space at the end of your turn. If it's on an island space, however, it only moves if the tile you place into your city matches the color of the arrow in front of your ship on its current tile. Now, if your ship didn't move and it's sitting on an anchor space on an island tile, you get to draw a goods token from the supply. And if you don't already have that goods token in front of you, you hold on to it. When your ship leaves that anchor space on the island tile, you cash in all the goods tokens you currently have in front of you. However, if you ever draw a goods token that you already have, you lose everything. So clearly this is kind of a push your luck mechanism that you kind of have control of if you prioritize your city building based on what lets you move around this loop, which may not always be in your best interest. Now, in addition, if your ship is ever sitting at an opponent's port and they would receive money or civilians when placing a new tile in their city, you also gain those same rewards. This module, I think, works best when left to run on its own. Sure, it's good luck when it's good luck, but it's also pretty easy to ignore when it's bad luck. Of course, then again, this system doesn't maintain itself. It's another item of the game that you have to keep track of, another thing that you have to do even when it doesn't really come at any benefit to yourself. And because of that, it's often overlooked, easily forgotten, and can tend to result in those moments when a player goes, oh wait, I think my boat's supposed to be over here by now, and hey, was I supposed to get money when you did a few turns ago? Lastly, this game has not only a solo mode to it, but the Emperor's Box adds a Barbarian Invasion expansion to it as well. Unfortunately, I haven't tried it yet, so I'm going to have to play that whole let you discover those rules on your own card.
Et tu, Brute?
Yep. I do like Magna Roma. No, it's not as pretty. In fact, I think even the box and the rule books look a bit better than the tiles and the boards in this box. I'm also a bit puzzled by the number of glowing reviews on BGG talking about how fast this game plays. I don't know, even my 2-player games of this have lasted upwards of 2 hours. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing even. I really enjoy the burn of this game. I really like the challenge, the puzzle of trying to squeeze every point, every benefit out of my tile placements. And sometimes that just takes some time. The one good thing here though is that you pick your next tile at the end of your turn, while the next player has already picked their next tile at the end of their previous turn. So you can kind of let your turns overlap here a little bit to save time. I don't know, maybe I'm in a minority here, so take my game length report with a grain of salt, but also don't take it as a complaint, because ultimately, I came, I saw, and I conquered. Cheers. We all enjoyed that way too much.
I'll go grab this tomato.
Way too much. It is not easy. Try it again. Ow. God, how ripe are these things? It is not easy. Ow.